Good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Hi, everybody. It's Pearl Schwenzer with Women's Successful Living and Soulful Self-Care Conversations. I'm so glad you're joining today. And today we don't have a guest. Today I want to share a story with you, and it's my own personal story, my personal journey. It's around part of what you hear us talk about often on the podcast, and that's about divorcing my parents. And today specifically, I want to speak to you about divorcing my mother and the journey that I've been on in this progress. You see, as a coach, it's really, really important to me that you understand that, yes, I say yes to my life as well as I coach you and other women how to say yes to yourself without guilt, with understanding that you can say no as happy as you won $1 million, just as happy as you say the word yes. And today's journey, I want to be vulnerable with you. I want to share you a story. It's kind of a heartbreak that no one prepares you for. And I want to share that with you. It's not the loud kind. It's not the obvious kind. It's the quiet kind. It's where you're sitting along all by yourself, just sitting with yourself. And you realize the person you may need a distance from is someone that you love, someone that raised you. And for me, that someone was my mom. And so today I want to share a little bit of that journey. This isn't a story about blame. It's not about pointing fingers or tearing somebody down. That's not my intention whatsoever. My story I want to share with you today is about what happens when love and self-protection collide. And you have to choose what you're going to do next. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is set a boundary with someone you never, ever thought you would. And if I'm being honest with you, it did not happen overnight. It wasn't one moment, it wasn't one argument, it wasn't one situation. It was a pattern. And I'm sure some of you can relate to patterns that of people and how they treat you or how they show up in your life. And that's what this is about for me. It was about a pattern across lines of interference, of situations that just kept escalating for me and pulling me into a space that did not feel safe or steady. There were other people involved, voices that added to the chaos. Oh my gosh, voices I never expected to add to the chaos, situations that went away further than they should have, way further than they ever should have. Especially because some of the people that were involved were my mentors, were people I looked up to growing up, people I would call for advice, especially as a parent. And even to the point where things escalate so much that the police got involved. I remember thinking, how did we get here? Not just out loud, but deep in my spirit, like really pulling at my soul and really asking God, like, how did this happen? Where did it come from? How did we get here? Because this wasn't just stressful, it was so heavy for me. And I think if you've been listening to my podcast and following along over the years, I know that you can hear it in my heart and the pull because I was as much a daddy's girl as I loved my mother, and I was there for my siblings growing up when my dad went off to war. But here was the thing. It was affecting my peace. It was affecting my energy. It was even affecting my ability to show up for my life and for the people who depend on me, to show up for me, my family, my husband, my sons. But here's the truth. I kept trying to manage it. I kept thinking if if I just handle this better, if I just stay calm, if I just fix it, as a people pleaser, we think we can fix everything. We can, all these things come to our mind, especially as a people pleaser. If I just did this, if I just said that, if I just changed this, if I just asked that. But here's a problem. It wasn't something that I could fix because it wasn't just one situation for me. It was the pattern. And patterns don't change until someone decides to interrupt them. And I knew there needed to be an interruption. And that's where everything started shifting for me. That's why I want to start this journey. This is going to be a couple different episodes. So I hope you pull up a chair, have a cup of coffee or tea. I hope if this resonates for you, you take some notes. You understand if you need help, you can reach out to us just down below. We have our contact information because I want you to know you're not alone. And for me, that's where everything shifted. Because here's the thing, there wasn't just one breaking point, it was a moment of clarity for me. That clarity is where I realized I wasn't just tolerating something anymore. I was betraying myself to keep the peace. I'd set boundaries, you guys. I talk about boundaries all the time, and I was betraying those boundaries I'd set for myself. I betrayed that fence that I created. Like my pastor, Father Bill, shared with me one time. We love our parents, we love our siblings. God picks them for us. We don't pick them, but we love them anyways, deeply and truly. But sometimes they can't be in our game of life. Sometimes they have to sit in the bench if they can't follow our rules. And for me, I started betraying that peace, that fence, that lock I put on for my game of life. And you know what? That's when it really hit me hard because I had to ask myself the question I didn't want to face. I had to ask myself, how much of myself am I willing to lose just to avoid making someone else uncomfortable? How much am I willing to give up on myself just so that they are not uncomfortable? How much am I willing to risk? How much am I willing to lose? And here's the thing, you guys. I decided the answer was no more. I was no more willing to risk any of that. I wasn't willing to risk my family, my peace, my spirit, my livelihood. I wasn't. So I decided to make a decision, and it was a hard decision. It was not easy at all, and it wasn't clean, you guys. It didn't come without emotion. It was so emotional for me to do it. Like talking to my husband, talking to my friends, my as you guys know, I call it my balcony people, having the conversation with them. It certainly did not come without emotion, as I said. But you know what? Here's the thing. It was so clear. So clear. I knew I had to draw a boundary. Not out of anger. I wasn't doing it because I was angry. Was I disappointed? Sure. But I wasn't angry. And it wasn't out of punishment. I wasn't trying to punish anybody. I wasn't trying to do anything to anybody to hurt anybody. I was trying to do it out of protection. I needed to protect me. I needed to protect my soul. I needed to protect my spirit. I needed to protect who I was becoming. Protection for my peace. I had needed to protect my family and my life for everything I've worked to build. I mean, that boundary truly meant creating distance. I had to create distance, and it was the hardest thing that I ever had to do is create that distance. And let me tell you something real. I want to be very honest with you. Just because it was right didn't mean it didn't hurt like heck. There was guilt, there was doubt. Could I do this? Could I stand in the gap? Could I be committed to this? There was moments when I questioned myself. Am I doing the right thing? Have I really thought this through? Maybe this, maybe that. Maybe they didn't mean it this way. Maybe they meant it that way. But there was also something else. It was called relief. Was like that kind of relief where it comes when your spirit finally says you feel safe again. Like, you've given it up to God. For me, it's God. Like I pray to him, tell me, guide me, tell me what to do. And it just, all this came from my prayer, from listening to my heart, listening to my spirit, my guidance through my pastor, all of that came from that again. And so it really felt safe in my spirit again. So if you're listening right now and you ever felt torn between loving someone, and protecting yourself, I want you to hear me clearly. Boundaries are not rejection. They are direction. They're not about rejecting somebody, they're about giving yourself direction. They are you deciding what you will and will not carry anymore. Whose stuff you're going to carry, whose stuff you're not going to carry. What of your own you're going to step into, and what are you going to release? Because saying no to somebody else doesn't mean you haven't stopped loving them. I love my parents. I love them very, very much. And sometimes it means you finally have to start loving yourself. And for me, that's what I needed to do. But it wasn't easy. 100% was not easy whatsoever. And I want you to understand that. But it was something that was necessary. It was necessary because I was so worn out. I was so tired. I was overwhelmed with showing up and being rejected, overwhelmed with trying to help and even listening and asking the questions about what do you want? What does it look like for you? And not getting the support or the answers that could help guide me. So it was necessary for me to do that. Because no is you guys hear me say this all the time. No is a complete sentence. No is like you can say no like you want $1 million, and we think we have to give an excuse to it. No, but no, this. No, if I say no, they're going to think I'm this terrible person. But no is a complete sentence, just like yes is. And this was the moment that I chose mine. I say no to many, many things, but when it came to my parents and that relationship, I kept that little girl in me kept wanting to be loved by mom and dad. They still wanted that love. And this time it was a moment I chose mine. I chose my yes. And so what I want to share with you today is in the next series, I want to share with you how that looked, how it felt. I want you to know it's not been an easy journey. I want you to understand that when we are in a place in our life where we have to show up for ourselves and we have to do what I call divorce our parents or separate or say no to those things, it's because it's a necessity. It's for your peace and your spirit. So I hope that you come on tomorrow and listen to the next episode next week and learn more about this journey, about what I went through in the divorcing of my mother and what has transpired since then. And in the meantime, I want you to know if you are somebody who struggles with saying no, if you are being pulled in every kind of direction and you are not pouring from the overflow of your cup, I want you to know it's time for you to stop. Look at what you are giving up in your life and your spirit and your soul to help somebody else. And if you need help with that, if you need help redirecting, need help setting boundaries, understanding what your joy is and how to start living with your joy again, I want you to just go to wsliving.com. That's wsliving.com. Grab a cup of tea with me and let's talk about what your joy looks like. Because, like me, when you finally step into saying no to others and yes to yourself, your world starts shifting. And I hope you go out today and I hope you find your inner pearl to greatness. Have an amazing day.